In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro discusses the case of Khymani James, a student at Columbia University who has been involved in organizing protests on campus. Shapiro highlights the ongoing protests at various college campuses in the United States, particularly in blue states where administrators and governments are allowing these activities to continue. He criticizes the administrators for being weak and giving in to the demands of the protesters, even when they are promoting violence and supporting terrorist groups. James has a history of activism, starting from his high school days, where he was involved in student government and advocating for various causes. Despite coming from an impoverished background and being raised by a single immigrant mother, he has been able to attend prestigious institutions like Boston Latin Academy and Columbia University. The podcast delves into a disciplinary hearing that took place at Columbia University involving James. He had made a statement expressing his desire to kill Zionists, which raised concerns among the university administration. During the hearing, James justifies his statement by comparing it to historical events like the Haitian Revolution and the death of Hitler. He argues that in certain scenarios, taking someone's life is necessary for the greater good of the world. Shapiro points out the intersectional identity that James uses as a shield against criticism for his radical views. He identifies as gay, trans, queer, non-binary, and black, which he uses to deflect any accusations of wrongdoing. By positioning himself as a victim of the system, he justifies his aggressive behavior and extremist views. Shapiro criticizes this mentality of aggressive victimhood, where individuals like James exploit their marginalized identities to push radical agendas. Despite James's controversial statements and involvement in protests, Columbia University has been lenient in dealing with him. The administration has allowed the protests to continue and even extended deadlines for the tent encampments set up by the protesters. Shapiro criticizes the university for not taking a stronger stance against the protesters and for allowing them to disrupt campus activities. Shapiro also criticizes the lack of action from the Biden administration in addressing the rise of anti-Semitism and radicalism on college campuses. He highlights the administration's reluctance to cut federal funding for universities that violate Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination based on race, color, or national origin. Shapiro argues that Biden's inaction is driven by a desire to appease radical elements within the Democratic Party and secure their votes. He highlights the need for clear condemnation of hate speech and violence targeting Jewish students and calls for accountability from university administrations and government officials. The podcast discusses recent incidents at universities like USC and Northwestern where protests and demonstrations have disrupted campus activities. Shapiro condemns the leniency shown towards individuals engaging in hate speech and violence, calling for stronger measures to protect students and uphold the rule of law on campus. The podcast touches on the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas, highlighting the biased approach taken by the Biden administration in addressing the issue. Shapiro criticizes Biden for attempting to appease both sides of the conflict, instead of unequivocally supporting Israel's right to defend itself against terrorist attacks. He also condemns the International Criminal Court for targeting Israeli officials and criminalizing the existence of the State of Israel. Shapiro calls for the United States to withdraw funding from organizations like the ICC and the UN, which he views as ineffective and biased against Israel. He argues that the U.S. should prioritize its national interests and protect its military personnel from being subjected to politically motivated prosecutions. Shapiro discusses the recent economic report showing weak GDP growth and rising inflation. He shares his concerns about the state of the economy, citing factors like fiscal deficits, inflation, and geopolitical tensions. The conversation explores the possibility of a recession before the next election and its potential impact on Biden's re-election prospects.